There's always something incredibly special about stories surrounding identity and finding one's place in this world. Finding out who you really are, what makes you you, and what your calling in life is. Master Keaton is one such story that deeply resonated with me because of that, being a story that explores such topics well into adulthood. For those of you who aren't familiar with this series, Master Keaton is a manga written by Hokusei Katsushika, Takashi Nagasaki, and Naoki Urasawa. It's a largely episodic adventure series that follows Taichi Hiraga Keaton, a man of multiple talents and a bit of an identity crisis, being known as half British when in Japan, but half Japanese when in Britain. For work, he's an archaeologist with the dream of one day proving the existence of an ancient civilization that lived by the basin of the Danube River in Romania. Archaeology is what he enjoys, what he feels passionate about, and what he loves to do. But his life in academia and archaeology never seems to go particularly well. He's constantly moving from lecturing job to lecturing job and can't seem to find anything stable anywhere, with most university departments considering his thesis to be complete nonsense. However, in addition to his work as a scholar, he is also a freelance insurance investigator, causing him to constantly travel the world, meet new people, see new faces, solve mysteries, and help others. This job tends to go much better than his archaeology work, but Keaton doesn't feel that it's truly his calling and what he wants out of life. Before getting into the insurance industry, he was also a Sergeant 4 and war hero of the British Special Air Services, which he also felt just wasn't truly for him, no matter how disciplined it made him. At the end of the day, he's just this wandering jack of all trades, having never gotten very far in any of those three careers. Even in his late 30s after having a teenage kid, he's still figuring out who he is, bit by bit, one step at a time. After all, learning is a lifelong process. The day you stop learning is the day you cease to exist. And that's one reason why I think that this is a series that pretty much anybody can connect with, no matter how old you are or what stage of life you're in. And if you're someone who's from a mixed ethnic background, or you have multiple nationalities, or you're an immigrant or a third culture kid, then this is one series that I would especially recommend to you. For me personally, ever since I could remember, people had always been asking me one very simple question: where are you from? It's a seemingly very normal question to ask after all, and one that's often very straightforward to answer for the average person. Yet to this day, I still don't have a simple answer to that. Having grown up continuously moving from country to country every few years, my identity was something that I always questioned. I was born in a country where I do not hold nationality, and I hold nationality for a country I've never even lived in. So for a pretty good chunk of my life, I didn't think I really belonged anywhere. There were times when, in response to someone asking me where I was from, that I'd just reply saying that I'm from nowhere. And so I felt like Master Keaton was a story meant for me especially. But really, I think that this is a series that'll resonate with anybody who at some point in their life has pondered about who they truly are and what makes them them. For this review, I'll be dividing the video into two sections. First on what I liked, and second on what I didn't like. Starting off with what I liked, I really liked the overall narrative, but especially the beginning and ending stretches of the series. In general, I found that most of my favorite stories from Master Keaton were from those within the first few volumes, as well as those in the last few volumes. For me, the most important parts of any story in general are the beginning and ending. And for the most part, I think Master Keaton did a great job with both. I still find myself reflecting back on the ending and the ultimate takeaway from the series. Speaking of what you take away from the series, another thing that I loved about Master Keaton was how, even though it's a very fun, episodic adventure series, it's unashamed and unafraid of tackling very difficult topics and themes. A pretty large focus of the story is often on corruption, the horrors of warfare, anti-immigrant discrimination, human trafficking, substance addiction, and child abuse. Even then, it still manages to maintain a very optimistic and hopeful outlook upon humanity and human nature. It's a series that just exudes kindness, especially when it centers around family and love, which it does for a pretty substantial portion of its stories. Those chapters truly are often my favorite of them all. I think you'll find a lot of value out of Master Keaton, especially if you've read Urasawa's other works, since family is always a huge component of anything he writes. Even though Urasawa only wrote around half of Master Keaton, you'll notice a lot of thematic and even narrative continuity with his other works. There's quite a few callbacks to Yawara within the series, with 2 back-to-back chapters being about the Olympics, and one of the final chapters of the series being a romance story that directly parallels the events of a certain moment in Yawara. And funnily enough, even though that particular Master Keaton chapter plays out quite differently from the story of Yawara, it has a very similar message to it, which I think you'd come to appreciate a lot if you're a Yawara fan. Beyond just Yawara, you'll also notice a couple of story elements from Master Keaton that get reused in Urasawa's later works, but especially so in Monster. The last arcs of both stories have a decent amount of common ground between them, and Master Keaton also has a fair number of stories taking place in Germany, so there's plenty of European history and geopolitics that seeps into the stories of both Master Keaton and Monster. Moreover, a lot of people will notice interesting parallels between the way that the 2 series both engage with ideas of institutional corruption, with Master Keaton covering office politics in academia, and Monster covering hospital politics, and with very similar levels of strength to their explorations. Beyond connections with Yawara and Monster, Master Keaton also shares some thematic similarities with Billy Bat and Mujirushi vis-a-vis their exploration of dreams, what it means to have one, and what it means to achieve it. But aside from the ideas that the series engages with, I also love the recurring cast members. They all have their own unique flair and identity to them, and I especially like the entire Hiraga family. Taichi, Yuriko, and Taihei are all super fun characters to follow. I've already alluded to how compelling I find Taichi's character, being someone in the middle of his life on a journey of self-exploration, but Yuriko and Taihei are almost just as great, with the series often dedicating entire chapters to just one of them individually. Yuriko, Taichi's teenage daughter, is still a high school student figuring out what it is she wants to become as an adult, whether to follow in the steps of her archaeologist father, her mathematician mother, or perhaps something different entirely. Given the dilemma of what you want to be is something everyone faces in their life, I imagine people can connect with her just as easily as they can with Taichi. Meanwhile, Taihei, Taichi's father, is a zoologist and an absolute sleazebag of a womanizer. I find the episodes dedicated to his escapades to be nothing short of hilarious. But all in all, Master Keaton's recurring characters are all really charming. Even those outside the Hiraga family, like the investigator Charlie Chapman for instance. But by virtue of its length and episodic nature, Master Keaton has the most characters out of any Urasawa work, with the vast majority of them just showing up for a single chapter. But even they serve their purpose well, and are often pretty compelling even within their rather limited screen time. Now, as for what I didn't like, I mainly had 2 issues in particular. One is that it felt way too inconsistent in story quality at times. Especially as an episodic series, I found that it was really hit or miss oftentimes from chapter to chapter, especially in the middle parts of the series. It having 3 different writers with different levels of involvement over the course of the manga's serialization didn't help much either. I think that's part of why I really liked the beginning, when it was mostly just Hokusei Katsushika writing, and the ending, when it was entirely just Naoki Urasawa writing. In the middle stretches of the series were when I think they kind of lost themselves oftentimes, and I think that's related to who was writing the series at the time. Now, there's a bit of controversy surrounding who wrote Master Keaton. Urasawa proposed the project with the intent of both writing and illustrating it, but the editorial staff at Big Comic Original were concerned that since Urasawa was already writing and illustrating Yawara Weekly, that he wouldn't be able to tackle on both the story writing and illustration duties for Master Keaton, and so they brought on Hokusei Katsushika to write the series. So originally, Naoki Urasawa was just illustrating the manga while Katsushika was writing it. Urasawa would still contribute to the story's development through discussions at creative meetings with the writing and editorial team, but Urasawa claims that around halfway through, he needed to start writing the series as well, with there being a huge shift in the editorial staff, making it no longer possible to have those intimate story crafting meetings. Urasawa has also gone on record to state that he and Katsushika had significant creative differences over the course of the series' serialization, and by the last couple of volumes, Katsushika stopped writing and Urasawa took over. I feel like this turmoil in who wrote the stories really shows up in the overall quality of the series' writing. I definitely feel more positive about more stories than I don't, but the series felt like it lacked a consistent vision for a decent chunk of it. Additionally, I think that to an extent, the series' episodic nature hurt it a bit. There's so much ground that each chapter has to cover within the span of just 25 pages. And I find that often just wasn't enough time to properly convey a very impactful story. It's no wonder that the anime adaptation for most of its run only adapted one chapter per episode, opting to flesh out fewer of the manga stories, as opposed to trying to adapt them all in 39 episodes. There are a few arcs here and there that last for 2 to 3 chapters, which I liked as that gave them enough time to really flesh those stories out. Even in Master Keaton Remaster, the 1-volume long sequel to the series, the chapters are oftentimes double the length of what they were in the original Master Keaton. Even there, the extra story length really worked to its advantage too, but by and large, most of the original series' chapters are just 25-page long one-chapter stories. Some of them work great within the span of a single chapter, but I think that a decent proportion of those stories could have been improved upon had they had at least an additional chapter focusing upon them. But overall, I loved Master Keaton. It's a wonderful series, not only about exploring the world, but also about exploring oneself. While perhaps not as thematically rich as Urasawa's romance or mystery works, it's one that I think is very well worth going through, especially if, like me, you're somebody that can deeply connect with the message of the story. Hopefully, it inspires you to travel the world a little bit more. But with that in mind, thanks for watching.